Welcome to episode 56 of the Trash Talk Business Podcast, where it's all about growing, scaling, stepping up your game in the junk removal industry. And when we mean junk removal, we're talking general waste. If you're dumpster hauling, tearing down fences, tearing down buildings, ripping up things, putting things in trucks and going places in this world, you have come to the right place. As always, I'm Andy Weins from this great state of Wisconsin, quarterbackless state of Wisconsin here at the Green Bay Packers. Casey Bubba Lawrence, the meat church himself. How the hell are you today?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Just to clarify, once again, I am not the Meat Church guy. That would be Matt Pittman of Meat Church. I am just a supporter of his. But yeah.
And as we found out last episode, when you get paid from someone, you have to announce it. So very clear, when we give shout outs to people, most of the people
getting paid.
Correct. Most people we actually pay. Like you pay Mr. Meat Church. And I pay. Last episode, I talked to Andy about Andy Nelson, my lawyer in L.A. Let me tell you something. Yes. He does not pay me for the mentions. I do pay him.
No.
Is that a crisp Miller Light? I see you enjoying at 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yes,
it is a crisp Miller Light. Miller time all the time here. Milwaukee's finest. I mean, we've had Milwaukee's best. You know, the recipes from here, the late lager.
Right down the street.
Anyways. No big deal. All right, well, we have a guest. Casey, why don't you introduce our guest?
Yeah, his name's Michael. I don't know anything about him. I've actually never talked to him in my life, but today we're going to find out what he does, why he does it, and who the hell he is. Michael, take it away.
All right. Love the introduction. I appreciate that. First, let's say thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate this, listening to you guys' show. Started listening to you guys here, I don't know, about a month or so ago. I know you don't know too much about me, but I live in Montana. My demolition business that I own is in Bozeman, Montana. But I also live here right on the border of northern Idaho by Coeur d'Alene and Spokane, Washington.
Oh, yeah.
So I travel back and forth.
Yeah.
A couple times a month, easy.
You got 3 mountain ranges to go through.
Oh, yeah. Yep. 4 passes total to get over.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Beartooth Pass?
Yeah, that's about an hour and a half from me.
All right, let me tell you something about Beartooth Pass. Apparently, you're not supposed to drive through it after, like, September. And let me tell you something. Being from the Midwest, we're like, oh, snow, no big deal. You just drive. Well, here's the problem. When you take 6 guys from the Midwest in their mid-20s driving in a van between gigs, between Park Falls, Idaho, and Billings, Montana, and they don't know shit about nothing, and GPS hasn't been invented yet, they end up in Beartooth Pass right around Halloween, and they miss a gig in Billings, Montana, and end up getting stuck on the side of the mountain for half a day before using a cymbal case to turn the trailer around. And let me tell you something. I spent a year in Iraq. I spent a year traveling with the band across the country. Iraq was probably safer. Actually, it wasn't probably. Iraq was safer because of nights like Beartooth Pass at an evening in Shreveport, Louisiana. So anyhow, many a nights that we almost didn't make it home on the account of living in a van with a band down by the river.
So do you live in Montana? Right?
I now call Liberty Lake, Spokane, my home. But I've been in Montana 22 years. I still have a house there. So
I used to go to Montana. What's that place called? It starts with a K right there, right after you get out of Kalispell. Yeah. I used to go to Kalispell every now and then. So I used to make that drive from Fort Lewis. That's where I was stationed, Fort Lewis, Washington. I had to go through all the Snoqualmie Pass and then go through Spokane, which is what I call it. And everybody's like, no, it's Spokane. I'm like, well, you have an E on the end, which emphasizes the ain part of it. But I was wrong. So Spokane, Washington.
When were you guys in the military? I got out in I ETA'd 05 after my deployment to Iraq.
Yeah, I was 07 to 13. Andy's still in. He's still doing doing the thing.
For service.
Next week is 19 years. So I joined in 4, went to Iraq, spent a year in Gitmo. I'll take Iraq over Gitmo. That's 2 references now in less than 5 minutes where I'm like, I'd rather be in Iraq than these other places maybe not rather be, definitely over Gitmo. Safer. Iraq was safer than Miller Lite nights on the road with the band and places like Beartooth Pass. They didn't have snow where I was in Iraq. I mean, IEDs, don't get me wrong, not always a great night. However, and we did get stuck in the sand a few times. We had other people though, right? You don't go places in Iraq by yourself. You get in the civilian world, it's like, hey, idiot, you got yourself in this mess. You ought to get out. And that's entrepreneurship. Speaking of the Trash Talk Business Podcast, that's entrepreneurship, baby.
Ain't that the truth? So, all right. So you have a demo company. Do you do junk removal as well, or is it just demolition? Or kind of tell us a little bit more.
Give you kind of a background of how this thing started. Is my primary business I've owned for my family and I bought out about 10 years ago. But we do HVAC in Montana, a business called Comfort Systems of Montana. I've been doing that since '99. With that going on through the years and just contacts and opportunities presenting itself, I had some general contractors that, just during some meetings bullshitting, talking about, getting to know to their estimators and, getting up on their bid list, started asking about the problems they have and, what are some things that they can't seem to find to get done. And one of them, it started off with surface protection on these brand new houses where we go in, and what they needed us to do was they were spending $20,000-$30,000 a home, fixing, repairing cabinets, countertops, walls, after they had built them with all the contractors. He's like, we'd pay you half of that easily if you just come in and, lay down paper and Rams board and wrap our countertops with foam insulation and some neoprene so we don't have to fix all this. We just don't have the labor force to do it. And I was like, I can come up with guys to do that. I mean, that's a no-brainer. So started the company called Job Site Solutions, and we started doing surface protection. Kind of rolled in doing some duct cleaning for us and some mold removal. And I was having dinner with another contractor, and he is telling me he was stressed out. He's like, I'm doing this remodel job. I hired a demo contractor. They said they'd give me 10 guys. I'm paying a bunch of money. And he's like, I can't get anyone to show up. I said, how much are you paying? And he gave me that price again. And I started doing the math between, okay, this job you're telling me you need done in 3 weeks. For me, contracting to an HVAC, this is like a 2.5 month job and a bunch of liability. I was like, I'll get you 10 guys on Monday. He's like, you can get me 10 guys? I said, oh, I'll get you 10 guys. Boom. I got him 10 guys. I had my fiance's son, me. I mean, I got everyone I could find that just had some little background in construction. And we did our first demo job about 3.5 years ago. And we completely gutted out an $8 million home up in a place called the Yellowstone Club. I mean, to the bones, ripped off siding, ripped off roofing, ripped off rock veneer, fireplaces, cut out logs. I mean, got into something we had no idea what the hell we were doing, but we sure acted like we did. And then
that's how you start.
That's how it started. Right? And I was like, wow, this demo business, there's really something going on here. You don't have any warranty. Everyone loves when you show up because no one wants to do this work.
Yeah.
Right? So everyone's always happy to see us. I was like, this is a game changer.
Plus, everybody thinks, and I'm sure you probably get this a lot, everybody thinks it's so much fun until they do it for a living. So they'll always ask, hey, do you mind if you think I can maybe just bust a hole in the wall? And I'm always like, hell yeah, have at it. Take the whole wall down. I'm still charging the same.
Yeah, people last about 45 minutes tops. First 10 to 15 minutes, like, this is awesome. They don't make it but an hour because it's not right. And often they're not the ones picking the shit up off the ground.
Yeah.
It's easy to take it off the wall.
It's easy to make a mess.
It's easy to make a mess.
Yeah. In fact, I don't do this often, but we got a job here at Walmart. I was working until about 5 a.m. this morning. We're doing all night shifts.
Nice.
First time I've been out in the field ripping down some sheetrock in quite some time. I feel the pain again.
Let's talk about this real quick, because that's one of the things our listeners and ourselves are curious about. How do you get in with a company like Walmart?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple different ways. And again, I'm really blessed that I have an HVAC company that I do a lot of large commercial work. So I really know these ins and outs. I've been doing it for 20 years. So again, some of these opportunities come across my desk on the HVAC side. I'm reaching out to companies. Primarily, there's only a few companies that place like Walmart or Costco's general contractors they work with that are pre-qualified around the country.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of those companies, this company happens to be ESI. They're located out of Boise, Idaho. I've done a lot of work with them on the HVAC side and just reached out to them and saw these demos coming up. And they're like, we're doing 63 demos between Montana, Idaho, Washington, and Utah this like in a year.
Hell yeah.
I was like, all right, let's see what I can get. Right.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into that.
Yeah.
So it's just getting out there and making the calls, really getting on general contractors' bid list, looking in back end on the corporate websites of companies like Costco's and things. You really got to search to find out who.
It's called researching. You're literally explaining what most people don't want to do because they give you the excuse.
That's
like,
why I asked the question.
I know. They're like, well, how do we get these big jobs? Hey, listen, right here. This is what you do at 8 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night. And then 2 o'clock in the morning when you're still up and you're bored as shit and you can't sleep. This is what you do.
And you've been talking about a second generation business, so you got 20 plus years of contacts. The challenge we see a lot in the demo world and the junk removal world is like people live day by day or week by week.
Yeah.
They're not thinking month over month, year over year, and it compounds. And I know this. I built the business in 4 years, and it was rocking and rolling. I rebranded. I sat out for 2 years. I've been back at it for a year. There was so much momentum lost.
Oh man.
Right. Had I have that, I'm not year 7 in this business. I'm year 1, really going into year 2. And I'm 14 years into this. So I have 14 years worth of contacts, not 14 years worth of momentum. And there's a huge difference because what I did when I was clutter busters back in 2008 and 2009 and 10 it doesn't really look like what I'm doing now. However, I got some relationships from back then. And I didn't nurture the relationships. I didn't build the relationships for the entire 14 years. I kind of was like, oh, hey, this takes care of me now, takes care of me then. We see a lot of these guys, they get in and they get out right around the year 2 or 3 year mark because that's when it's like, well, you want to get out of the truck. Like you said, you got to do something different. And a lot of guys are unwilling to do it. I'm not even going to say unable because you just gave the answers. Go right. If you're reading the Wall Street Journal and someone's like, hey, they're going to, like, hell, I read last week, they're closing down 4 Walmarts in the Chicagoland area. If you're in the Chicagoland area, that's 4 commercial properties that need to get cleaned out, right, and demoed possibly. And I'm not saying you're going to win the first bid, but at least you can look to see who is winning the bid, who are the contractors that are working them. I used to be in commercial demo. I don't do commercial demo anymore for a lot of reasons. We might get back into it. We'll see with our new crew and our new president. Like he has a background there. It's like, I got in by going to networking events and finding out what buildings are selling, who's bidding this job or that job. And what ends up happening is you keep bidding jobs. I'm not looking to win the entire fucking GC bid win. I'm looking to do the demo portion or the move out portion, the decommission portion. And you got to put yourself out there. If you're just sitting there waiting for the dang old phone to ring because you put up a Facebook ad yesterday, that is not the way you win.
Well, so as you know, I got out of junk removal and I went strictly structural demolition. And I learned really quick that the customers are completely different. And so is the marketing. So is, anything, lead generation, everything is different. I went from seeing and meeting my customers at a networking event or through realtors or through insurance people to never meeting my customers, never meeting my clients, just their name and their logo I would see on invoices, So the biggest thing that I learned was like you said, Andy, you pretty much started over again. You had a 2-year break where you had to step away. Well, what I saw was having to reconfigure my mentality on what I was doing, what I was actually offering, and demolition, whether it's interior or not, is completely different. Now, I will say interior demolition, I tell everybody, I suggest them get into it if they're in junk removal because they're already set up. I don't know how many times it was like, yeah, we'll do the interior because we have the means to haul it away, have the means to haul it off, tear it down, that whole thing. But when I got into bigger projects with structural demolition, that's when you get into machines, equipment, having to learn how to use it, not just the controls, efficiency, you name it. Do you do structural demo as well?
Not often. We did our, I guess we'll call it, excuse me, our first one here at this Walmart, where we took down our primary scope of work was to remove a 60 by 20 ish building that was, it's one of their off buildings that they use for their online delivery services. You pull up, they bring out the groceries.
Yeah.
Well, apparently that's, kind of backstory. That's almost doubled their daily sales volumes since COVID.
Wow.
Because people don't want to go into the grocery store anymore because they're lazy. So all of these Walmarts, just, for anyone out there listening, that's all in all the states around the country that do this, they're expanding and adding those and remodeling Walmart because it's done so much. So those are going in everywhere.
Wow.
So kind of backstory. But the point of that is that was our first true structural demo, with steel beams. I actually saved the structure. So I have the full steel package ready to go. We took out foundations, footers, dug it out, saw cut, ripped out concrete, loaded it up, finding, just learning experience, right? Of like, okay, do you get dumpsters? Well, shit, this takes forever. Calling around, finding an excavator, getting a side dump, because that you can load 40,000 pounds into one of those.
Oh yeah.
And just that process and
a lot of legwork.
Yeah, it's a lot of legwork, and knowing how to run machines, not subbing that out. That was, I don't know how to do that. I was fortunate enough to bring a friend in from New Jersey as a contractor that could do this, and paid him to kind of run that up for me. But
yeah,
man, he was breaking, using a breaker, breaking up the footers and what he calls, deconstructing, right? So he's not just chopping it up into little bits we're taking out. He's chopping up into, whatever a 10,000 pound Gradall can lift at one time, and wrapping chains and pulling those out. Instead of, what I would have done is, the walls, I would have taken that exterior ephes off and pulled that down. He took a saw and cut that thing and ripped them into 6 foot by 20 foot chunks and ripped them off with, and I just learned a lot of things. I was really lucky that I got him here, because that's not how I expected it.
Well, and
so I'm still learning a bunch.
And that's the key right there. The fact that you learned, because a lot of people, they'll sub it and then they'll walk away. Okay, cool. Call me when it's done. The problem is, since that's your buddy, the next go around may not be a buddy type situation. They may be someone who's expensive, or maybe someone who messes up because they're not doing it right. They're taking shortcuts. The one thing I learned on demolition, we preach a lot about getting out of the truck. Well, when I was doing demolition, the key thing is equipment, right? So I had to not only have people that could use an excavator or dozer, but that could use it at my level, if not better than me. And they're like, well, how did you learn? Did you go to training? I'm like, no, I freaking rented it one day and I figured it out. Over the years, I learned how to be efficient at it. And the bad thing is, there's a lot of liability in running these jobs, because if you're just starting in demo, you don't have all the capital in the world to hire someone and rent equipment just to train them. So you kind of have to train them on the job. Or if you have a bigger job, you can say, hey, these 2 days, we're going to go train on the equipment. But it's still very risky. So the one thing I had to try is, I had a guy, his name's Altman. And the one good thing about Altman is, you leave him alone, he'll figure some shit out. He does better when you teach him and leave him alone. But other than that, that was my biggest obstacle, was finding the right operators that could not just operate that level, but be efficient, not say, oh, I'm getting paid by the hour, so I'm gonna take my time, Right. And also how to, if you're demoing something, you know this. If you have a wall of concrete block and you demo it with the insulation and sheetrock, it's no longer recyclable. Now it's trash, and it's heavy trash. And down here, they charge you by weight. So even if you have mostly brick and some trash, now it's all trash. So that was also another learning curve, teaching these guys, hey, be responsible.
He used a word I love that people question all the time. Deconstruction is different than demolition. Deconstruction is, you have to have a basic knowledge of how a structure was built, so you can take it apart in the opposite order often, right? And so when we gut houses, I deconstruct them first. I pull all the copper pipe, I pull all the copper wire out the walls, right? Obviously I open the walls up first, right? And to Casey's point, I separate the drywall. A lot of guys, I just rip the whole wall down. It's like, no, take the drywall down in sheets, because for us, and they closed our C&D recycling facilities, or our construction debris recycling facility nearby. They closed it because it wasn't cash flow positive. So now it's like it makes more sense even for me now, because I know when I get that 2x4, those 2x4s, I know I can put those on the corner of my property and they'll be gone the next day.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, and also we keep 2x4s because we need them from time to time. So I'll keep clean ones. And the thing is, for the guys that want to go there and just fucking start hacking at it, you're going to spend so much more time cleaning shit up than taking it slow and methodical. And even a bathroom's not a very big space, but you do it right. You do it slow, like even vanities and stuff. Take out the 4 fucking screws and lift and carry the whole vanity out, right? And then smash it in your truck or donate to Habitat or do whatever you're going to do thereafter. But if you go in there and smash the sink and then smash the wood, you're going to have to pull those 4 screws out eventually anyways.
Yeah.
Do it in a slow and methodical way. And that's the difference between deconstruction and demolition. And like with Casey Taylor down houses, he's dead right. You got 2 choices. You either take it apart methodically and have it in nice piles, or you rip it all apart and you spend twice as much time digging through it. Or third option is you put it in the truck and you get your ass handed to you on disposal. Yeah. And I'm not in the business of working to make the damn landfill and other people more money. That ain't the job I'm in. So I love what you're saying. And also for our average listener, they dabbled in interior deconstruction. And like you said, like, hey, this is the first time you ever did it. And this is all the shit I learned. It's like, yeah, you started in, siding and out, stuff that wasn't even in this space generally. And you figured out, okay, I have the tools. I have a little bit of know-how. Why not me? And with the economy kind of a mess right now, you found a nice niche. It's like, well, Walmart's kicking ass, right? They're doing just fine for themselves. So instead of fighting it, how do you lean in and how do you become a tier 2, tier 3 contractor for some of these big projects and get paid? That's the key. It's like,
that's how I got my Amazon deal. I mean, they were retrofitting all of their warehouses, so they had to get rid of a lot of stuff. And whether they were really bad off or not, if it was red tagged, it had to go because they had all this money surplus. And they're like, look, we're going to not pay taxes even though we made $1 trillion. How do we do that? Build more warehouses and remodel all the new or all the current ones. But that's how you do it. You got to get in where you fit in.
And the type of money to you that makes your month is a rounding error to Walmart and Amazon. Right?
Yeah.
It ain't no shame in that game, right? If you're a $1.5-2 million a year business, right, and you do a $100,000 job, let's call it, right, 5% of your revenue, you're like, oh my God, that's like, and I did that. I did a $120,000 job for the U.S. government, for the VA, like my 13th month in business. I didn't have the capital at the time to carry that, and I figured it out. I busted my ass on a lot of little jobs for 90 days, waiting for that check to come in. Now, they spent $75 million on that project. The $125,000 I got to clean that building out. I mean, come on now. What are we, right? And that literally was the down payment for my building. I'm not where I'm at today without that job. And to them, they're like, oh yeah, this is the work we have to do before we do the $75 million project. Or $58 million, whatever it was. So you can get in where you fit in when you put the work in and when you start acting right. I like what you said. You came from a second generation. It's like you already did bid jobs. You already had this, abundance mindset. It's like, man, there's an abundance of information out there, right? Versus the scarcity of jobs. It's like, it's your choice to go bid them. It's your choice to go look at them and win them and take on something new. Like you said, you saw, man, they got 10 people. This is the bid. Shit, I can do it for less than that. I can tell you what, a lot of these demo companies, this is what I see too. If you want to get in with demo, this is how you do it. I see a lot of these demo companies, they bid by the hour. So they'll say, okay, I'm going to have 6 guys there. Like this is one we competed against tier. So they had, it was 45 hours an hour per guy is how they bid jobs, right? So their 3-man team was 135, right? My 2-man team is 165 when I do demo. My 3-man is like 235. I was $100 more an hour than they were by the hour, right? And I bid them, right? I'll bid them by the hour because I know I can get it done. Anyways, the bid that they got was a 6-man team, this other company. Mine was a 3-man team. I told them I would get it done in less than half the time. So my bid was a little bit lower than theirs. I got it done in even less time than that. Yeah. So that number of $235 an hour might have scared them at first. And they're like, well, hold on. If you can get it done in less time, who cares? So they took, the other guy said it was going to take a 5 or 6 day project. I told him it was going to get done in 3 days. I got it done in 2.5.
My favorite
spend
question.
$200 to buy the tools and equipment and train.
Yeah.
Take the time to train the guys, because these 6-man teams, this is what's happening. There's 2 guys that know what they're doing, 2 guys watching the guys that know what they're doing, and 2 guys that are taking a shit or smoking a cigarette the entire time. It's like the one guy's sweeping and the other guy's holding the dustpan for 20 minutes waiting for him to get to him.
I mean, my favorite question for all my clients was, what are you trying to accomplish here? Because it's not just the job. Oh, I want to get this knocked down. It's, I want to get this knocked down before this date or before this time or within these means. Then it's like, okay, I can give you everything you're actually wanting, not just the main piece of it. And that goes a long way because, let's face it, there's a lot of competition out there in demolition. Because, I mean, especially down here where labor is everywhere. Hey, I can do it for cheaper. I can do it for this. So it's like, okay, how do I have my edge to get these jobs? Well, okay, you want the job done? Check. You want it done at this time? Check. Before these dates? Check. Do you mind if I come in here at night? Yeah, sure, that's fine. No one's going to be here. Perfect. All right, I'm going to get done in 4 days. But I thought it was going to be 10. Well, it's 10 days unless I can come in here at night and do 2 shifts. Well, let's just do it then. Because now they're happy that it's getting done quicker. Most everything in this industry, junk removal, demolition, you name it, time is of the essence. I mean, that's why execution. Yeah, and that's the thing is I hate being booked out for weeks and weeks because it's all about timing. I'd rather get done now. Now, with demo, so it's interesting you went from HVAC to demo because I didn't even think about this until now, how hand in hand those two go. Because we had an HVAC company that would call us for all of they did commercial. And they would be like, hey, look, we will provide the crane if you can provide the transport. And I'm like, done. So I would just get a trucking company to show up. They land it there. They would use their HVAC license so we could scrap the metal. We would get the return on that. And then that same, usually it's an older building, then we'd be in there for the cleanup. Almost 9 times out of 10.
Yep, and they need ceilings ripped down. Once they start into there, I don't think I've ever had a job yet that doesn't have some kind of a change order, or they need something else, or hey, can we use your guys to actually do job site cleanup for us because we don't have any laborers?
Yep. Or the braces that the old unit was on, maybe they got to rip those braces off and use new braces, and next thing you know, the girders are coming down, and you just happen to be there. Hold on, let me change my shirt. All right, demo guy.
Opportunities there. Just got to present it to the GC, let them know. Let it to the customer. I don't know if you find this or if it's even been brought up, but I thought this was pretty interesting to find. Our general contractors, at least in Montana, and we have a smaller market pool, so it's a little tougher, but it's really tough to find subs to bid, especially the MEPs, because they're just booked out. I mean, we're booked out for 2 years probably. So what we're finding is that when they come to a remodel job, none of these subs want to bid it. They're like, remodel? Hell with that. I'm out of here. I want new construction, right?
Yeah.
So what we're finding at their generals, if we get in there and knock this demo out for them, we do the saw cutting so the plumbers don't have to do any of that, they're finding their bids are coming in 10, 20% less expensive, and they're finding 2 to 3 times more people bid it. Now that everything's cleaned and gutted and ready for them.
What you said, MEPs, what's that?
Mechanical, electrical, plumbing.
All right, thank you. See, that's the other thing. Like I talked about this last episode. It's better to ask the question and learn and look like an idiot for about a second there than it is not to ask the question. Actually, so Rachel and Rick, I talk about them often on the podcast because they're my first consulting client, and I've been consulting with them for about 1.5 years now, and they have reached. So a year ago, their tagline was we do deconstruction with a woman's touch. Because it's a female-led company, and having them work for me and do jobs for me for a number of years, like they over-document, which is good because in demo, often you're like, I don't know what was there, right? Like, what do you mean there's a change order, right? But she's really good at that. Anyways, they changed their branding this year to being the general contractor's best friend, because they went from, hey, we'll do demo to, oh, we'll do a demo and we'll also do the haul-away now that we have a trailer. Oh, you need rough framing done? Yeah, we can do that. Oh, the guys don't want, or their carpenters don't want to do this or that. It's like, well, we're already here. What else do you need? And now they basically get it to the point where they can go from demo to rough framing done before the GCs even bring in their guys, and they're happy because often you're paying 2 people to do one job, and now they're doing it all, and they stay within their scope. They got to the point where they were, they're like, oh, can you hang drywall? They're like, we can't do it as efficient as the guys that do only drywall. Yeah, right. But then, like, if you're talking about saw cutting. Yeah, if you can prep a floor or a subfloor for the Man, I'll tell you what, plumbers, electricians, they like to do what they do. They don't like having to cut excessively or, deal with shit.
That's why I stopped doing floors. That's why I stopped doing floor demos, because by the end of it, I was like, I'm not reinstalling the flooring. And then, and by the end of it, they're like, well, the flooring company costs this much. You're this much to demo the floor. I'm like, well, I have an idea. I'll find you a flooring company that'll do the demo and reinstallation, because now they can do it that fits their needs. That's the same way we do with any opportunity that you have to fit the needs of the contractors coming in after you. Do it. We had one of my clients knock down the rest of a house that caught fire, and the insurance company was saying, oh, we have to inspect the foundation. If it's good, we're just going to build as is. So I told my client, I was like, get with the builder they have lined up. Ask him what he wants when you're about to do the final part of that clean. Because if he wants you to cover all the plumbing and HVAC that's all underneath the crap, he's like, I said, if he wants you to do it, because now you're making him happy. And guess who he's going to call first for anything that he needs cleaned up? He's going to call you. And then they kept the foundation, which was stupid, but hey, it's not wasn't my call. Even the builder was like, this sucks. I'd rather pour a new foundation. Obviously money wise, but also because it's easier to work with something new than on top of something old. Yep. So the main thing though was for these guys, I said, work with the builder who's going to be building behind you. And then that way you can he can guide you what he wants you to do. And then after that, now you have an ally, and he's going to call you because you thought of him first, and he's going to call you again. Hey, I got a project. I want to see if you can fit it in.
Well, last episode we were talking to Travis Johnson, and Travis Johnson said the best thing you can do is ask your customers, what do you want? Like, what do you need? Like, don't go in there guns ablaze and think you got all the answer. It's like, well, hey, what's the end state? Who's doing this next? And what are their expectations? When you do that, everything starts to make a hell of a lot more sense. Yeah. You're not guessing. I'll tell you what, as an entrepreneur, you're often guessing. Like, I don't know, like just
guesstimating.
Do that. Guesstimating, right? Better off ask them, what do you need? And then, like you said, Michael, you're like, all right, you got 6 guys and this is the bid. I can do that. Yeah. Like, I will take a chance that I can do that, and I will figure it the fuck out. And here's the deal. If you'd have done that job and shit the bed and lost your ass and fucking hated every second of it, you'd be sitting here talking about, oh yeah, I remember that one demo job I did 4 years ago and I haven't touched it since, and this is why. Right? And problem solved.
Yeah.
Right? I'll tell you, I mean, we did moving, residential moving for like 3 years. And I'm finally like, man, why do we keep doing this? 80% of our complaints are coming from 20% of our revenue, which was moving. We stopped doing it. And it's like our complaints bottomed out, almost no complaints. Our guys are happier. The same with commercial demo. One of the reasons we got out of commercial demo, you brought it up, Casey, floors. I got my ass handed to me on so many damn floors.
Yeah.
Because it's, whether the bad ones are when there is asbestos, or when you peel back a couple layers and
there's 6 other floors underneath.
There's 6 other floors. Or the other issue we had, it was exactly what you said. We would prep the floors, and the flooring guys would come in and be like, "Oh no, we need it like completely cleared and clean." And I'm like, "No, our job was pull the damn carpet. Y'all got to deal with the residue." And you get in this
glue
match, and then finally the glue, and I'm like, I finally just said, there was a job I remember. It's like a year and a half, 2 years ago. I finally went to the contractor. I'm like, "Hey man, we said we would pull. We specifically put in our bid. We will pull the carpet. All residue ain't on us, because them big flooring companies got the tools to do it." And it turned into a pissing match. I'm like, you know what? I'm good. Because for us, we're not suited to do commercial demo the way that it's needed to be done. In the residential side, people love us. We picked up a contractor 2 months ago. He goes, you guys are the easiest people to work with. And one of the reasons why is because we communicate effectively. Yeah. We use, like, a lot of demo contractors aren't using tools and processes and systems. That's what I like about what you said, Mike. It's like you even said, like, yeah, once you systemize your business and train your guys, the discipline is less important. Like the fact that we send out email reminders or text reminders. We use Jobber, and I talk about and promote the hell out of Jobber all the time because it's what I use. I've been using it for years. And when I use Jobber, it pushes this all out. The challenge what I've seen in the demo world especially, and this is for contractors in general, they are shit communicators. And demo guys are the worst. They're like, maybe I'll show up tomorrow. We're going to see how the job goes today. And it's like, what are we even doing here? There's a whole list of subcontractors, expecting you to come in and meet the standard. And even the customer, when you go in with a general contractor and you screw up their timeline and the customer feels like they're being taken advantage of, oh my God, that GC will never call you again.
Yeah, I've found, really in the demo side of things, for me, it's solving problems. Right? These
100%.
contractors and homeowners, it's like you are solving their problems. And once they realize that, it's what can you do next? Can you saw cut? So like this turned into my second job I ever did. Right after that demo, I told you, that house demo, we got took on a job at Costco, and that was it. They came in like, well, can you demo these walls? Like, yeah, I'll figure this out. We'll demo these walls. I'm like, well, we can't find anyone to cut our concrete floors and slabs and curbing around, the freezers. Can you do that? It's like, well, I know a saw cutting guy. I'll figure this out. Like, you're gonna pay me to do it? Yeah, hell yeah, I'm gonna do it. And he's like, well, we actually can't get 2 laborers. Okay, can you give me 2 guys for 6 months? You don't have to control them. I just want them to do stuff around the building. I said, boom, you got
Done.
2 guys, 6 months. 4 or 6 months later, we're done. We hauled out, never removed a piece of concrete in my life. Moved out 700,000 tons out of that building. But we figured it out for them, right? They love us. We just find proper solutions to the problem.
Well, you just ask their question too. Hey, how can I work with you? What other ways can we work together? What other things do you have in the pot, right? What other fires do you have going? And a lot of us don't want to speak up because either A, we're not used to it, B, we don't care to, or C, we're scared. And I'll tell you this, the coolest thing I used to do with all the clients I had, I wouldn't just say, hey, use me for the next one. I'd always be like, hey, look, you think I could take you to lunch next month or whatever, like after the project's over, I want to take them to lunch and actually have a conversation that's more intimate than on a job site and say, hey, look, what do you see this business doing next year? How can I fit in to that agenda? If there is a spot for me. Another thing is also, like you said, labor. I don't know how many times I would never turn down a labor only gig because that's my most profitable service, man. If I don't have to worry about disposal, I just got to give 2 guys to a job. I know what I'm paying them an hour.
Or even tie up a truck.
Exactly.
Drop
them off. Or say, hey, I'll pay you in fuel if you drive your own vehicle there. The next thing you know, you're making, and that's the thing. It's not junk removal. It's not demolition. So some people have that pride issue, but it's smart business and it's your business.
Yeah, I ain't got that issue.
I don't have that issue either.
Yeah.
Good gap filler. So one thing I really wanted to pick you guys' brain on is, I listened to a lot. Obviously, you guys, really sound real well versed in business. But on the demolition side, and then I'll kind of get into the junk too. But I couldn't find any sort of training other than the hard knock style, right? I mean, I have searched high and low, like, do I bid square footage on linear feet of walls? What's disposal weight? That's where I've really struggled is figuring out how to bid these jobs. We'll come in, I'm like, God, this is a 3-week job.
Mm-hmm.
And, like Andy said, we'll go in and crush it in a week. And I'm like, wow, I hit a home run, but I know how many I've probably left on the table because I was way overpriced.
Yeah.
How'd you guys get to where you're at? Where'd you guys, where'd you get this experience from? What do you
So one of the best things you can do as far as estimating, go to FEMA's website. I actually learned this from Casey.
Mm-hmm.
You go to FEMA's website, and FEMA's website will have the average weight of average things, of average houses, and you can at least get a ballpark, and then you can figure out. So I've had some bids where you got to bid them by square foot.
Yeah,
like, hey, how much is built, right? Exactly. Like, so I also, right, and then also ask around. So, like, I know City of Milwaukee, when they have an abandoned property, it's $15,000 straight up. That is the starting point for someone to tear down a 2-story house with a basement in the City of Milwaukee. That's what a crew will come in. They'll come in with the excavator and then possibly a dozer, and basically there's a certain standard they have to meet. Like, they take down half the basement and then fill in the other half, right? And it's like, all right, that's $15,000. I also know that if you can do deconstruction, their pricing's up like $18,000, and you have to keep like 70% of the material, 80% of the material, whatever it is, out of the landfill, right? So you ask around there. And then I looked at it like, man, can I do that? And I'm like, no, I don't know how to tear a house down for $15,000. I ain't going to mess with it, right? I did tear down, and also you said School of Hard Knocks, I tore down garages and sheds and chimneys and enough things. And what I do is I document everything. How long did it take me? How much was the weight, right? And then you start to get averages over time. I also know from a timer perspective, this is something I had to learn very early in business for anybody out there that has employees. however long it takes you, like, so I took everything. How long does it take my brother and I?
Mm-hmm.
And then multiply that about 4. Because I know my brother and I have the skill set, right? Which makes us twice as efficient as the next guy. Plus, it's our fucking company and we get paid when the job's done. So now I'm going to go double that, right? So if a job would take my brother and I a day, I got to look at it 3 or 4 days for our guys, for a 2-man team, right? Or give them a third guy or give them a fourth guy. It's a lot of trial by fire.
Well, and also,
demo is so unique. There's not a school out there.
I will say this, though, the bigger the projects. So what I started learning was there were some projects that intimidated me sometimes, and I mean, it would be, and I would go look at it and I'm like, on one side I'm just itching to do it. Like, oh, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be so fun. But on the other side, I'm like, what if I fuck up? Like, what if I mess something up? Who's going to be hurting the most? It's going to be me, because I'll just find someone else to come in and finish up. I may be hurting really bad, whether it be financially or whatever. So, I asked other companies out there, demo companies, bigger demo companies than me. In the early years of junk removal, I actually had a big demolition company feed me small demos that weren't worth his time. I mean, they were worth his time, but he's like, I'd rather have my crews doing these strip malls and these big buildings than these little bitty houses or whatever. So that's kind of how I learned. And I always picked and choose. At first, I was like, okay, well, this house is on 3 acres. Perfect. This house is on 10 acres with other houses. Sweet. But if it was like, oh, this house is next door, 10 feet away from another house, I'm going to pass on that. But I would like to know when it's starting, because I'm going to come and bird dog the next guy and just kind of watch how he does things. I've YouTube things. You can get as much as you can from there. The biggest thing for me that I learned the most was asking questions, getting turned down from other companies, and just keep driving to learn more. But also, by experience, you just, getting in there and doing it. I will say this, though, the bigger the projects, if you go look at these bigger companies out there, there's a reason they have a legitimate estimator position in their company, because that's all they do. Mm-hmm. And there's other companies now, because I get their emails all the time because of my demo company. They'll email you, hey, we're an estimation company. All we do is do estimates for big contractors. And you send in the details, sign a contract with them. They'll go out to these sites. They'll do the complete draw up plus their fee and send it to you. So, I mean, there's ways, obviously, that you would do that on a big project. But, as far as learning as you go, unfortunately, that's all I think that I know is what I've been through and the lessons I learned along the way and just talking to others.
So I went to Australia. There was a girl I met at a concert, and I ended up in Australia with her for a month. Another story for another podcast. I don't think Casey knows that story. Anyhow.
I do not know this story.
Yeah. Her name was Claire. I met her at Summerfest, and year and a half later, I went to Australia with her for a month, and then she came back to the States with me for 3 weeks, and whatever. We had like 2 months of seeing the world together. No big deal. Anyhow, this is what I learned. Her and I were talking, and her brother-in-law and her sister were going to remodel their bathroom. And I was like, oh, I'll give them a hand doing that when I get there. Like, yeah, it'll be interesting. Let me tell you something. Their houses are nothing like ours. Like, not a thing. Like, they have a roof and they have walls and they have floors. And after that, I was pretty much lost. Like, they don't use 2x4 framing. They don't have insulation like we do, because it's I knew the electrical was different, but I was like, that'll be ran the same. Nope. And then I've gone, all right, so that was like my first, oh shit, not everyone builds houses like we do in the Midwest, right? And then I've now had the fortunate pleasure of traveling this country and going on job sites with people. Houses are different everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so that's the other thing with demo, and this is residential, obviously speaking, not commercial. Houses are so different. It's a regional thing. You can be a best demo company where you're from. Like Casey's talked about it. Casey's like, oh man, I can rip down any building. I'm like, cool, come up here. We have basements. He's like, fuck that. Right? And like with me, it's like, oh, what do you mean I got to crawl underneath the house to get at the piping? That ain't happening. Damn. I just go down in the basement. Right? So it's like things like that make a difference in the way that buildings are built. Now, if you're in a commercial space and it's poured foundation, they have, tilt up or, steel beam. Okay, there's probably some similarities. But then you also got to factor in, what does the weather play a role? Like, how thick does that concrete have to be? Is it concrete? Right? There's some places you don't have to get away, or you can get away with not pouring big old slabs.
Well, also, what kind of slabs? Because do y'all do post tension cable up north? In your foundations? Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, see, I never heard,
okay, so
I never heard that before. Casey told me about this.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what the hell that is.
So down here,
you put rebar in there.
Yeah, down here, it's in Texas, it's standard. Like from the 1980s on, they have to do post-tension cables. They'll do the rebar, concrete, but then they lay these huge cables in there. And then obviously once the concrete's cured, they'll go in there and they'll taut them to like 30,000 PSI per cable. And it's because it keeps the foundation together. So we're no matter what the ground's doing, that foundation it's still there. Because down here, our dirt
foundation sitting on top of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sitting on top of. Yeah, like with us, we got nice soil that, flexes. And our foundations have to stay solid while the earth flexes because, it freezes and it gets damp and it gets wet. So it's like, no, we need our concrete to breathe.
Yeah.
Like our concrete, like there's concrete, right? When you put cuts in concrete and whatnot, right? During the winter, you have this big old half inch, and by the summer, it'll be touching.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like
those joists.
So we need that concrete to flex. Oh, 100%.
Yeah, but that was something I had to learn because I almost took down this huge, it's like a 4,500 square foot house. And like, yeah, man, make sure that you might want to see if that has post tension cables or not. And I'm like, what's that? I had no clue. And I read up on it and I was like, holy crap. He goes, yeah, man, like, it could be bad because it could snap and take someone's arm off. It could rip through a machine, all this crap. Well, my dad was in commercial construction. Well, down here, they use the same concept. But as you can imagine, for these big buildings and parking garages, it's completely different. I mean, those cables are under so much stress compared to a house. But it struck the fear of God in me because I'm over here like, don't touch the foundation. We will all die. So I called this contractor who all they do is come out there and they de-stress these cables. No shit. There was this dude with one hand. He had an arm, but he had no hand. He was smoking a cigarette with the freaking tank top on. This is a job site, by the way. And he has a jackhammer that you would get from like Lowe's. And he's just finding the cable because on the side of the foundation, you can see the spots where they covered it up. So you just, okay, it's over here somewhere. And he was just like with a cigarette in his mouth with one hand. And I'm over here like, man, I was freaking out about this, but now I'm actually feeling kind of more comfortable seeing this guy go at it. This is that guy who like probably works down the swamps who rents out the airboats. That's what it reminds me of. And, I paid him like $600 and he did it. That's what his business does. But I just thought it was a little bit more professional there. But, the other thing is when I'm getting rid of that concrete, it's a pain in the ass because there's a huge cable that's lined in plastic that goes through that concrete now. So now I have to break it to where the cable comes out with the plastic or else they're going to ding me when I'm getting rid of that concrete. And sometimes that cable doesn't come out. So you have these dingleberries of concrete blocks when you're trying to load these trucks. So it all goes back into knowing your territory and learning what you're doing, learning the best way to do it. And those cables are covered in grease, by the way. So don't go at it with a. We went with a grinding wheel. It didn't do anything. Just made a bunch of sparks. Didn't do anything.
So there's your 5-minute answer to how to do demo. Go out and do demo. That's
Go
how you
out
do
to
demo. We had actually one of our best guests that we've ever had. This guy Tracy. So we interviewed him. I love this story. Actually, I say best guest because his 6-month episode check-in was one of our most listened to episode. Almost 500 downloads on that episode alone. Anyways, we interviewed Tracy last June. He hit us up on Facebook. Was like, hey man, I kind of been doing a couple of side jobs. I want to get into junk removal. We interviewed him on a Monday. He quit his job on that Thursday, and by that next Monday, he was in business for himself. We're like, bet, right? Like, hey man, you already done made the bed. Let's fucking go. So we checked in with him. This was June or where we checked in with him after the first of the year, and we ended up doing 2 episodes. The first episode was like, hey, the 6-month check-in. What have you learned? And it was eye-opening how much stuff he learned, and hell, half the shit I had forgotten because I had learned that stuff 14, 15 years ago, and it was like, oh man, it was a good refresher. And then we did a second episode on demo, and he went at it, was like, oh, him and a guy, I was going to take a couple hammers and a couple sawzalls and we'll figure it out. And he figured out quick, fast, in a hurry, that is a way to lose money and kill your body. Or he was talking about this job. He's like, oh, I got a $3,000 job. I'm going to get it done in like 3 or 4 days. It'll be awesome. Like 9 days later, he's like, fuck this. I can see why I was the lowest one that bid it. And I'm like, well, what'd you learn? And he's like, this, and this. I'm like, okay, are you still in business? Yep. All right.
Then
what
apply
are you
that
do for next time. This sounds good. And the thing is, the questions he had, because he asked us like, well, what could I have done to avoid this? I'm like, done about 100 jobs before that, so you knew what questions to ask. And he was talking about stuff that he's in Atlanta. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that.
It took me,
right, because his buildings are different.
Yeah, it took me over a year to get my first house demo, because the first demolition I did, lost money on so much money that it made me really think, am I ready? But then I researched and did as much as I can with learning. And then over a year after that, I got my first house demo, and it happened to be 4 houses on one property. It was actually that same job with the post-tension cables, but it was 4 houses. Yeah. And one of those houses had a swimming pool. And I learned that swimming pool was poured by someone who just doesn't give a shit about money, because there was like double the concrete in that swimming pool. But it was one of those things I took to heart, because I was like, it took me a year where I was just like, man, I want this. And it never worked out. But then when it finally worked out, it was like, holy crap, this is going to be $100,000 job. And it's for one of our best clients. So, don't rush into something purely on the fact that you just want to do something, rush to learn as much as you can about something. That's how I look at it. Like, be in a hurry to learn, not in a hurry to get fucking punched in the face.
Well, to perform.
Yeah.
So where's your business at now, Mike, and where is it going?
So that's a good question, right? So we're really focused in the Montana market on selective demo, interior, exterior, light commercial, residential, from anything, like no project too small to what can we handle. But we found that niche with our supporting services, and I was trying to branch out and think of other things that we'd start doing, but I think that's really a home run in that market. I'm trying to bring that same concept over here to Spokane, Northern Coeur d'Alene area, but it's just a different market. It's a different level of income. It's a different level of homes. Structured done differently, and
different customers.
I'm just trying to get my feet wet of what these people want, and that's where I also was like, oh well, shit. Well, junk removal is a perfect in. I don't know anything about it other than what I listened from you guys. I'm like, God, this makes a lot of sense, right? Because just like you said, you're already there. People already need this stuff. You go to a hoarder's house, and then everything needs ripped out of there past that. But I'm not in a spot where I'm set up in Montana, where I have, a workforce I can pull from. I have laborers. I don't want to be the guy out here working in the business rather than on the business.
So why'd you jump the other side of the mountains? What the hell's that all about?
Oh, my fiance lives here.
There we go. There's the answer. There's the answer. I was going to say, what's her name?
Nothing good ever came out of Washington, in my experience.
Casey's got about 3 ex-wives up there.
I'm actually originally from Spokane. I went to school here. So
oh, did you?
You do. You got two. Casey's got 2 ex-wives in Washington. No big deal.
I wouldn't go that far.
See, Mike's got one too.
I will say there's a big difference between the eastern side of the mountains in Washington than the western side. So like Spokane, all those places over there, Tri-Cities or whatever, completely different than Tacoma and Seattle.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. 100%. So you're over. Okay. So the business on the mountain, on the Montana side, is rocking and rolling. How big is that operation there?
We run anywhere between, and as you know, jobs come in like this.
Yeah.
It's hard to schedule. Anywhere from 8 to 20 guys. We're doing about, last year we also acquired another business, our only competitor, pretty much in the state, which is Local Demo. We bought them out the end of last year.
Good for you.
Before that time, we were doing, I think we ended up about $2 million in sales last year.
And that's all demo, or that's also the HVAC business?
No, that's just demo.
Pure demo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
There's some cleanup and some duct cleaning in there, but
yeah. But yeah, correct. But it's rural run demo. So, all right, help me understand this. How far are you in Spokane from that other location?
5.5 hour drive.
Okay. So those are complete. Okay. So because I think about the hub and spoke mentality, where you have a hub, major city, and then you spoke out. Okay. So because you're 5.5, 6 hours, there ain't no hub or spoke. It's a brand new. Okay. So now you're in Spokane with a fiance, and you want to repeat that model, and it's not. Well, you don't have 20 years of relationships.
No.
Well, also you have to look at. I mean, honestly, I would talk to contractors already in that area and say, "Hey, look, where y'all at?" Because You mentioned the income. That's a huge factor. And not just income, but income reflects insurance. Insurance reflects the amount of work. So even if they're like, yeah, hey, the income around here is 40 to 50 grand. Okay, well, talk to insurance companies because they're the ones who are going to tell you how much these houses are actually being covered for. And plus, in that area of Spokane, I'm no expert in the state, but the weather is a huge factor as well. You know, when is the season of remodeling? When is the season of, cleanup? Down here, Andy and I have something completely different. Down here, we do a lot of brush cleanup, and it's profitable. But up there, they don't touch it, right? They just don't. They don't have the need for it as much. Now, down here also, we have a lot of storms, rainstorms, thunderstorms, tornadoes, you name it. So a lot of debris pickup, a lot of fences pick up, a lot of fence building, you name it, a lot of roofing. Sorry about that, roofing. But that's the thing you have to look at for Spokane as well, because I don't know Spokane, but I think we actually have a guy who follows us who's out of Spokane, who's junk removal. But if you're trying to get demo going, I would assume talking to those contractors is the first start because they're going to be your in, right?
Yeah, I see. I mean, I do a quick search, right? This is just hillbilly math, where I look to see how many junk removal companies are there in a given population, and if it's an oversaturated market. There's quite a few junk removal companies in Spokane. What's the population of Spokane offhand? Do you know, ish?
I would say that Spokane, Greater Spokane, Spokane Valley, and maybe Coeur d'Alene, it's in the 800 to 1 million.
Yeah, it's pretty. Way more now.
I mean, that's okay. So if I compare that to Milwaukee Metro is 1.2, and there's about as many junk removal companies. I don't see 800 got junk. They typically don't go in metro markets under 1 million. There are sometimes, but typically 1 million's like right there where there makes sense, or at least for them to have that hub. Like we have some 800 got junks here in Wisconsin. They're real small areas, but they all report back more or less to the main.
Yeah.
Or they're all owned by the same guy, right? So it makes sense for them to have that model. There's a lot of competition I'm seeing here in the junk removal space. And what's interesting is you're looking to go the opposite direction of most people. Most of our listeners and even us, as we grew our business, it was junk removal was our in and demo was our end state, because in demo leads to commercial jobs, which leads to sometimes porter services or repeat work, or at the very least higher margin jobs with a better close rate. Better, I should say higher revenue, not necessarily higher margin, higher revenue jobs with a higher close rate. Because once you're in with a GC, you're bidding and winning consistently versus homeowners. I mean, one day you might go 10 for 10 and the next day you go 2 for 10.
Yeah.
And it's the same phone calls, right? So for what you're doing, I see here, I mean, you're right in the state line. I've only been, my cousin was stationed there at Air Force. There's an Air Force base somewhere. We flew into Spokane. That's all I remember. Yeah, 20 years ago, Fairchild. So like 20 years ago. Junk removal's heavy. The thing is, most of the junk removal companies out there are competing for the residential clients. They're on Facebook, they're on Google AdWords, and they're looking to pull couches out of basements and things like that. With what your background is, you got to get in with the demo contractors.
Well, also
and do the cleanouts there.
Yeah,
because that's where that's start or begin with the end state in mind. I mean, I'm looking here. I don't see. I mean,
well, here's another in.
Chunks is the big player in your area. They got almost 900 reviews.
Here's another in that you're gonna have over the majority of the junk removal companies. Your insurance coverage alone, your policy, you're in right there, because a lot of them, they have requirements. Hey, I need a $5 million umbrella, right? Like I had a $5 million umbrella, and guess what? That separated the playing field hugely.
Yep.
It's very expensive, but it puts you in a different playing field.
Most junk removal companies can't touch. They can't touch commercial jobs because at best they'll have a 1-in-1. They'll have $1 million with $1 million umbrella, so total of 2. And almost every job you want to get to, a legit job, they're $4 to $5 million cap. I had one job was a $10 million cap, and I was like, I can't, like that doesn't make sense for me to have that. And we talked about it. And they're like, all right, just do 5. Like they I had to get basically a waiver within their company, and a lot of those companies don't even know how to bid jobs right. Like I won one against one of our competitors, actually a guy that was down at JunkCon in Raleigh last year, that came up and met me. he had a bid in on a job, and he's like, oh, it'll be like 15 to 20 trailers. It's this price, like $12,000 to $15,000. And the guy's like, all right, well, what, like, that's it. Like, you just say words, you know? And we came in there, we bid it, and we sent him an actual estimate, right? An actual quote, like looking professional as shit. And we told him this is what's going to cost. This is a not to exceed price. This is what it is. And it was pallet removal for a big company because they're having a big safety walkthrough, and they had 6 months worth of pallets that got all caught up.
I love pallets.
Now, that job, I love me some pallets, right? Because all I did is I picked them up on one end, I delivered them on the other end, and I got rid of about 80% of the volume by taking them to a pallet yard. Now, I also know who to call and figure it out. I had to do it on a Saturday, and I sent 3 24-foot box trucks. Now, back in the day, if I would have been running my 16 cubic yard trailers, that job would have taken me 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is, they said you got 1 day to do it on a Saturday. And the other company I was competing against, A, didn't know their fucking pricing. B, they only got 2 trucks. So they're like, oh, it's 12 to 15 trailers, maybe 20. Or they said 15 to 20 trailers, I think. And they couldn't even, there was no way they could get it done in 2 days. The math didn't check out, right? Me, I sent my 3 trucks there. We had it done in 4 hours, 5 hours. And again, for them, like we were talking about at the top of the program, what is the value? The value to them that it was done safe, first and foremost. It had to be done safe, right? And the second thing, it was done efficiently. They're like, hey, we're going to be bringing a guy in on Saturday to run the forklift and run the yard. We're paying him overtime. So we already pay you, and we got to pay him because we couldn't run the forklift there because of their safety protocols. And so we were done. They were happy. We did another job for him 2 weeks later. That's the type of work you get in. And now they were cleaning up because they had a safety audit coming through. So this is how you get in with those commercial jobs. And everybody in junk removal I talk to wants commercial work. You've already solved that nut. I would focus on that. It's like I worked at a restaurant growing up, and the restaurant basically kept employees for the caterer to do catering. And the catering was where all the money was at. Yeah. So it's like with you, it's like residential work is the restaurant, commercial work is the catering. And you got to look at it that way. You might need to do some junk removal, but I wouldn't do much outside of commercial work.
I mean, unless it
might be feast and famine for your guys. But trying to get in that space of residential and compete with people when you already have the resources and relationships potentially, residential junk removal is going to be a grind when you know you have this commercial demo and deconstruction.
Yeah. And you know,
pulling fritters for 125 hours is nothing compared to $50,000 6-month jobs or.
Well, you also have an advantage.
Jobs. Yeah, whatever it was, 50. Yeah.
Because I would actually, when I was doing demolition only, after I left the junk removal world, I would actually call a certain someone who owned a junk removal company because his name was Discount Junk Removal, and I knew he would do any job for the cheapest. So he always did my final cleanup. That means raking up shit in the dirt. That means scooping along the foundation. The stuff I didn't want to mess with, I knew he'd do it. Also, I had a job where it was 2 hours away from where he was. And I knew he was going to do it because he didn't turn down anything. And it was like 32 tires. He came out there. He was the cheapest. And he took 32 tires from me, charged me like $300. I was like all day okay with that because he has to deal with it now for little to nothing. I know he wasn't making money because, I mean, I know him, right? He left me to go start his own junk removal company. And he made the mistake of being the guy who does it all. So I only used him for shit jobs. That was an advantage. That's an advantage you have as well that you can look at when you're doing these projects over there. You know the phases. You know which ones are your pain points, which phases suck the most. And the whole like, hey, I got to sweep out this 20,000 square foot warehouse. Yeah, I don't want to do that. Why am I going to tie my guys up sweeping out this much space for 3 to 4 to 5 hours? I'd rather just move them on to the next thing and call one of these cheap companies, give them business, and they can do all the shit work. I'm just saying. That's an advantage.
The challenge right now with junk removal, and I'm very honest with this with people in the industry, and they've already seen it. If you get in the junk removal Facebook groups, there are more businesses closing the last 6 months than there were in the 6 years before.
Yep.
And you know, there's people that struggled during COVID, no doubt. So if you take COVID out of the equation, right, the housing market has been good for the last 10 years, right? It recovered in 2013, 14 is really when the recovery kicked in. And the housing market has been slowly climbing. And then you take 6 months of COVID where the houses didn't sell and everyone was shut down, fine. But since the second half of 2020 and all the way through Q2 of 2022, it was rocking and rolling. So there's a lot of people that got into junk removal in that 18, 21 month period that did really, really well. And then all of a sudden last year, Q4, they're like, oh, my phone ain't ringing. Oh, it's slowing down. And then Q1 of this year, they're like, yep, got to hang it up after 3 years. I'm selling my truck, selling my trailer. And there's going to be more. The housing market will not recover for at least a year because especially in our area, there's a demand for people that want to get houses, and then there's a lack of supply of available houses, and interest rates and inflation haven't changed that, right? The house has kind of already peaked out. So now you got more people remodeling than moving. And so demo is a better space to be. I anticipate the other thing is the junk removal market has doubled in the last 10 years, which is huge. Back in 2013, 14, the junk removal space was about $5.5 billion. Now it's closer to $10 to $12 billion. And so, but the thing is, there's more than double the amount of junk removal companies in the last 10 years. Right. I'd say there's 4 or 5 times as many, if not more. Now, they're not all the big blues of the world, but there are more competitors in junk removal now than ever. Now is not the time to get into junk removal for the first time when you have something else that has worked. You can, as it, like you said, as an adjunct, whether it's job, right? If you're doing demo, you can do job site prep, which means cleaning it out, setting up the ram board, putting out neoprene, all that stuff. You can do the demo, and then you can do the job site cleanup, and maybe even the job site prep again, right? Prep for the next group, right? So there's a lot of angles you can get in, but if you have this experience and this expectation of how you've been running your business in the commercial space, shifting into residential junk removal that's a grind.
Well, it's residential or commercial.
It's going to be a struggle.
Junk removal itself. I have a client right now. He's been a dumpster company for 2 years. He has a dumpster company. Yeah. The dumpster company makes $2 to $5 million a year. He does great, right? But he's trying to get in junk removal, and he has literally almost checked off everything on his list as far as getting into the business. And he's like, I can't catch traction, man. He has websites, different names, you name it. And I'm like, well, the reason why, no offense, you are your biggest competitor. He's a dumpster company. Yeah. People call him because they want to use dumpsters, not for him to do the work. They've already figured that out. Now with demolition, that's the thing. Stick to demolition, interior demo. You're already offering the cleanup as well. But while you're there, say, hey, look, this is what we do. So if there's anything left or anything else that you would like to get rid of, we're already here. But I honestly, in this situation, I would not market as a junk removal company as much as I'd market as a demolition company.
And offer adjunct services to the same customer. Versus pissing away a bunch of money on Facebook ads and Google ads, competing with these other junk removal companies that are desperate right now. Let me tell you how desperate they are. The college hunks in our area, they are for sale. They've been for sale for 6 months. She's been doing it for 3 years. She wants to get out because they basically only scaled to 3 moving trucks and 2 junk removal trucks. Right. And I can talk about this because I never signed the NDA because that's how I roll. Anyways, because they said, hey, someone said they were for sale. So I said, hey, let me tell you. Let me look at it. Well, they're like, hey, we do a background check. You already own a junk removal company. We can't have you sign the NDA. So whatever they told me is public information, right? Here's the other thing I know. Last Tuesday, Casey, I don't know if you're watching me or anybody else listening. If y'all follow me on my personal Facebook page, you already got a little teaser as to where this story goes. Last Tuesday, I got a text message. Someone said, hey, I've been listening to your podcast. How do you get rid of wood so cheap? And I said, I use Source Services because their 40-yarders are like, their 40-yarders are $740. I think the price is up to $740 or $725 for a 40-yarder. I only paid $470. Mm-hmm. It's because I only put in clean lumber. So now there's no other construction debris. So our guys sort it, and so that clean lumber goes right to their chipping yard. Right, so $470 for a 40-yarder, right? $10 a cubic yard. I'm good with that. That's less than what I'll pay to landfill it, and I don't want to landfill clean lumber. Anyhow, so the guy asked me the question. I give him the answer, and I said, "Hey, who am I talking to?" And he goes, "Oh, this is I think Jacob. He's already dead to me. The general manager for the college hunks in town. Our junk removal has been struggling, and we want to we want to decrease our costs by recycling more, right? Because junk removal hasn't really taken off, and all the they've been in it for like three years now plus." And I'm like, funny that you reached out to me. I go, isn't your franchisor supposed to teach you this shit? He's like, yeah, I knew that question was coming, right? Our very first episode was anti-franchise and you can't have a business that's repeatable. And this is why it comes down to it. We just spent the last hour explaining. You had a question like, well, how do you do demo? You figure it the fuck out. Junk removal, demolition, deconstruction, dumpsters, all of it is so regional. And that's what people don't understand. You have to get in and grind it out and figure out who the players are. You've already done it. You already had the proof of concept. Now the question is, do you want to do that again in a new market on the account of the fiance? Right? That's the question you have. Or do you run the other business remotely and I don't know, fucking hike or climb mountains? I don't know the hell people do in Spokane, right? Because getting into junk removal right now is tough. Junk removal is going to be tough for the next 12 months. And this is something Andy Barton told me. Andy Barton, veteran, Barton Brothers Junk Removal out in New Jersey. They're in they cover like the middle of the state, which is a pretty significant area. And great operator out there, hates the franchise model, does his own thing, does over $200,000 a month consistently. Like he's top guy, and he's out there killing it. And he's the one, he's like, yeah, I've seen it. He's been doing it for like 11, 12 years. He's seen more than I've seen. And he's the one that's telling me, hey, watch out for this. Now, what's he doing? He's growing his business because he's going to chew up all that space and territory when people exit.
Yeah.
So he's like, let's go do it. Getting in right now is not the time. I love this industry. I'm an advocate for this industry. And I'm saying getting in right now is not the time. If you want to get into residential junk removal, because people are desperate. Casey talked about Chuck on a truck that he hires.
Yeah.
There's tons of guys out there who will do anything because now they already got the truck. They already got the trailer. They already got the obligation. They got the pride that are preventing them from running a successful business and or knowing when to cut sling load.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about it is, not trying to be negative at all. It's just the facts is, 2020 for me was my best year ever in junk removal, but it's because of the business I already had set up. All my customers were stuck at home, bored, trying to figure out what to do. They had all this money coming in still because they were just, I don't know what their businesses did, but they had the money to spend. So they remodeled, they cleaned out their houses, they cleaned up their yard, and we were there. Now, on the flip side, when people went back to work that next year, the success followed up too, because now we had that footing still. But I started in 2016. So I still had 4 years on everybody. The people that just got started, though, in 2020 and 2021, it's the same thing we talked about in the last episode with the real estate. The realtors that got their license between 20 and 21, they're going to be hurting right now because now houses are harder to buy, harder to sell. And before, they were just, hey, houses for sale for 5 minutes and it's bought. Over asking. Now, you'd be lucky to get the third negotiated price. You know what I'm saying? So you just have to look at the market. What does it call for? I think if you already have something going for you, at least the knowledge, I'd go on that. I'd lean on that. Just my opinion. Interior demo is always going to be, we're not in a, we're trash and waste. Absolutely. But unless you are a municipality contractor, like the big three, there's going to be times where you can pick and choose where you fit in as far as in the trash industry. And right now, I think with the remodeling, the demo, that's your spot, at least for a new area. Right? Let these other people figure out the market for you, pay attention to them, and then you can reassess in about 6 months to a year if you want to really go the junk removal route, because the margins, even the best margins, they're not easy to come by, right? Especially on a consistent basis. Now, demolition contractors being linked up with insurance claims, those can be very consistent, as you probably already know. That's my 2 cents.
No, that's great because I don't know that market well.
Yeah.
Just why I pick you guys' brain and see. And like I said, I've done HVAC for 20-some years, and as much as I love it, fed up with dealing with the day-to-day homeowner that never. I mean, that's not all true, but they're tough to please. Someone's upset all the time. You got guys hitting the road, you got trucks running, vehicles, and it's just a lot of liability. And so I was nervous trying to get, if that was the route I was going to go, but if it generated on the backside, that's what I wanted to ask you. But if that doesn't make sense, and it doesn't sound like it does, I'll stick with the niche.
You don't ever want to make big decisions based on back end possibilities, right? You always want to make sure, what's your front end look like? What's the front side look like?
Top line revenue trumps all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make money here. And I'm a huge advocate for the recycling end of things. Tell you what, if I ain't doing jobs, I don't have trucks, I don't have guys, I don't have recyclables.
Yeah.
Right. So I spend as much time and energy on the side projects as what my profit and loss statement can afford, which is about 10% of my effort. The other 90% of the effort goes towards running the junk removal company, because I need the phone to ring and I need us to bang in jobs. So I have the opportunity to do the podcast, to do the recycling, to shoot the videos, to do all the other stuff. Without the time and attention to running Camo Crew junk removal, I don't have all that other stuff. And same with you. It's like, yeah, you can focus, or, well, it's not even the word focus. You can look at all these adjunct things. If you ain't doing the job, you ain't got no adjunct. There is no job site prep if there ain't no job. There you go. Here you go. That's my fucking. I'll kick things off with top takeaways. There it is. Taylor. This might be the episode title. There ain't no job site prep if there ain't no job. Keep your eye on the prize. There's my top takeaway. Casey, what you got for top takeaway? Gee, now his mic don't work. Really? You went the whole episode?
There we go.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I had you on mute.
Good job. We're professionals. We're professionals here.
I guess. I'm 2 beers in. I'm feeling good right now. My top takeaway is, just because something sounds like it could be doesn't mean it should be. And if you already have experience and knowledge on something, especially as extensive as you do, I wouldn't rush into something new. I wouldn't feel like you have to rush into something new. Let me rephrase that. I would definitely take my time in deciding what you're going to be doing when you make that move. I don't know if you've moved already, but if you're already there, I wouldn't rush into something new just to learn it all over again, because you already know the ins and outs and what it takes to build a business from the ground up. So go with what you know, but also take your time. Like Andy said, go slow, right? Not just estimating a job, estimating your business. Go slow.
Slow is smooth, smooth is fast, fast is good.
Yeah.
That and death before dismount. Those are the two battle cries of the Motor Transportation Corps. All right, Michael, top takeaway.
And it's just kind of like you said, it's focusing on that end goal and almost working, backwards from there, and not trying to reinvent that wheel, right? I think you guys are right on that spot. I focus on my end goal where I know what the demolition business is. I know the profitabilities. I know the margins on that stuff. It's very lucrative, and ultimately those are the jobs we want. That's where that started with this. That's what I was trying to lead to. So not reinventing that wheel and going a different route to try to create my end goal. Sticking with where I'm at. That 100% makes sense.
Numbers have to make sense. Don't lead with emotion.
Oh yeah, they got to make sense.
We start data-driven decisions. Start with your numbers, KPIs, profit and loss statements. And let me tell you something. If you want all that data, you got to have an operations software. Obviously, I'm a huge proponent, huge pusher of the jobber. Here's the deal. You have to have a business that is systematic, thorough, repeatable, and having your numbers. The only way you get those numbers is by banging jobs and documenting what happens. I highly recommend getting Jobber. Roll it into your business so you have the data. You know who your customers are. You know your average job price. You know all those things because the operation software does it for you. Huge proponent. If you want to know more about Jobber, hit me up. I can always talk about it. Also, by this time, actually, I'm trying to think when this episode's going to air. Whatever. This episode's going to air probably mid-May. Here's the deal. Michael, his extensive research ability. Last episode, Michael doesn't even know this. Last episode, we talked to Travis Johnson, and Travis said, hey, if you want to get some free publicity, if you want to know the answers to the test, go into people's podcasts. Let me tell you something. Michael went on, applied to be on the show, which is like 4 questions, basically making sure you're not a donkey. Taylor,
or a bot,
our engineer, reads it. They're like, yeah. They're like, hey, this guy thinks looks like he knows stuff. And what is your email address, or what's the business name again, Michael? Top Solutions.
Yeah, job site solutions, local demolition.
There you go. Job site solutions. I thought he was a software company. That's how much we don't do research, because we want to bring people on, right? And there's people, and I talked about this last episode. If you overtly even say you want to pitch, there's the one guy that wanted to do the Uber for trash, and then we had a no shit conversation with him for about 45 minutes, and that was the end of that. Here's the point. If you want to step up, you want to be an industry icon, you want to stand out among your competition, and you want to learn the best answers and hang out with Casey and I, it's not difficult to do. Apply to be a speaker. our process is basically, do you have a camera and a microphone and something to talk about? Because with Michael here, there was no job prep, no show prep. We're an hour and 20 minutes into a conversation where I learned a lot. I want to go to Spokane now or Montana, somewhere, right? Because it sounds awesome. And we got to have ourselves a conversation where a lot of learning occurred both ways, right? Last episode, we talked about investing in yourself, and we just spent an hour and 20 minutes investing in each other to learn more about this industry and give you guys the answer to the test.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do here on the Trash Talk Business Podcast. Thank you for joining us as always. We're going to see you next week.
Thanks, guys.